What's up, football fans? Before we dive into one of the most heartbreaking yet beautiful stories in World Cup history, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Because you're about to witness the journey of a nation that's produced some of the greatest players ever, yet has never won football's ultimate prize. This is the story of Portugal. The story of a country that gave us Eusébio, Luís Figo, and Cristiano Ronaldo, 3 Ballon d'Or winners. The story of a team that's reached World Cup semi-finals but has never reached a final. The story of brilliance, heartbreak, controversy, and one man's desperate quest to win the one trophy that's eluded him his entire career. From the Black Panther in 1966 to Ronaldo's tears in 2022. From the golden generation's failures to Euro 2016's unexpected triumph. Portugal's World Cup story is one of individual genius, overshadowed by collective heartbreak. Stick around till the end because we're covering Eusébio's legendary 1966 run, Figo's golden generation disappointments, Ronaldo's 4 World Cup campaigns, shocking upsets, and why Portugal might be the most talented team to never win a World Cup. And if you love World Cup content, check out our other videos covering every team at the 2026 World Cup. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Portugal's World Cup history, or rather the lack of it for the first 3 decades. Because here's the thing, Portugal was late to the World Cup party. Very late. The first World Cup was in 1930. Portugal didn't show up. The 1934 World Cup, Portugal wasn't there. 1938, still missing. After World War II, the tournaments resumed in 1950. Portugal tried to qualify but failed. 1954, failed to qualify again. 1958, failed. 1962, failed again. For 32 years, then from 1930 to 1962, Portugal never appeared at a single World Cup. They tried, they failed, they tried again, they failed again. While Brazil was winning titles, while Uruguay was becoming champions, while Hungary was dazzling the world, Portugal was sitting at home watching on television. But things were about to change, because in the early 1960s, a young player from Mozambique, then a Portuguese colony, was lighting up Portuguese football. His name was Eusébio da Silva Ferreira, and he was special. Eusébio joined Benfica in 1960 and immediately became a superstar. He could do everything: pace, power, finishing, dribbling. They called him the Black Panther because of his speed, grace, and deadly finishing. And in 1966, he'd finally get his chance to show the world what he could do. England 1966, and Portugal finally qualified for their first ever World Cup. They had Eusébio, they had talent, and they were ready to make an impact. But nobody expected what was about to happen. Portugal started slowly, drawing 3-1 with Hungary, and losing 3-0 to Hungary in their second match. Wait, that's wrong. Let me correct that. They beat Hungary 3-1, then faced Bulgaria and won 3-0. Then came their defining group stage match against the defending champions, Brazil. Now, Brazil 1966 had Pelé, the best player in the world. They'd won in 1958 and 1962. They were going for a 3rd consecutive title. But Portugal had other ideas, and what followed was one of the most controversial matches in World Cup history. Pelé was kicked throughout the match, brutally fouled, targeted. Portuguese defenders, and let's be clear, this was the era when rough tackling was accepted, went after him hard. Pelé was injured early and hobbled through the match. There were no substitutions back then, so Brazil had to play with an injured Pelé. Portugal won 3-1. Eusébio scored twice, Brazil was eliminated, Pelé was carried off, and Portugal advanced to the quarterfinals in their very first World Cup. But the victory came with massive controversy. Had Portugal been too rough? Had they deliberately injured the world's best player? The debate raged. In the quarterfinals, Portugal faced North Korea. And this is where things got insane. North Korea, the ultimate underdogs, scored 3 goals in the first 25 minutes. Portugal was down 3-0 to North Korea in the quarterfinals. It looked like one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history was happening. And then Eusébio took over. He scored in the 27th minute, 3-1. Then he scored again in the 43rd minute, 3-2 at half-time. In the second half, he scored again in the 56th minute, 3-3. He He'd single-handedly dragged Portugal back from the dead with a hat-trick. Then Jose Augusto scored to make it 4-3, and then Eusébio scored his fourth goal of the match in the 78th minute. Final score, Portugal 5, North Korea 3. Eusébio had scored 4 goals in one of the greatest individual performances in World Cup history. The comeback was complete. Portugal was in the semi-finals for their very first World Cup. Incredible. And they'd face the host nation, England, at Wembley. July 26, 1966. Wembley Stadium, Portugal versus England, the semi-final. Eusébio was on fire, having scored 7 goals in the tournament so far, but England had home advantage and a solid team. This would be tight. The match was tense, tactical, and physical. Bobby Charlton scored twice for England. Portugal pushed and pushed, with Eusébio trying everything. Then, in the 82nd minute, Portugal won a penalty. Eusébio stepped up and smashed it home. 2-1. 8 goals in the tournament. Hope alive. But that was as close as they'd get. England held on to win 2-1. Portugal was out. Eusébio was seen crying as he left the pitch, tears streaming down his face. He'd given everything, scored 9 goals in the tournament. He'd score again in the third-place match. But it wasn't enough. Portugal beat the Soviet Union 2-1 in the third-place playoff. Eusébio finished as the tournament's top scorer with 9 goals and won the bronze ball as the third best player of the tournament. For a first World Cup, it was incredible. But they'd come so close to the final, only to fall short. The 1966 team gave Portugal hope. With Eusébio in his prime, surely more World Cup success would follow, right? Right? Wrong. After the glory of 1966, Portugal fell off a cliff. They tried to qualify for the 1970 World Cup in Mexico. They failed. They tried for 1974 in West Germany. Failed. They tried for 1978 in Argentina. Failed. They tried for 1982 in Spain. Failed. 16 years without qualifying for a World Cup. Eusébio was getting older, and Portugal couldn't find a way back. They'd reached a semi-final in their first attempt, and then they disappeared for nearly 2 decades. The 1966 success looked more and more like a beautiful fluke. Eusébio retired from international football in 1973 without ever returning to a World Cup. One of the greatest players of his generation, a 9-goal tournament performance, and he only got to play in 1 World Cup. It was heartbreaking, and Portugal's struggles continued. But in the mid-1980s, a new generation was emerging, and they'd finally break the qualification curse. Mexico, 1986, and Portugal was back after a 20-year absence. They had a solid team, but nothing spectacular. This was about re-establishing Portugal at World Cups, about showing they belonged. They were drawn in a tough group with England, Poland, and Morocco. They lost their opening match 1-0 to England. Then they drew 1-0 with Poland. Wait, that's wrong. They lost 1-0 to Poland. Then they faced Morocco needing a win. They drew 3-1. No, wait, they lost 3-1 to Morocco. Hold on, let me get this right. Portugal lost to England 1-0, drew with Poland 1-0, and beat Morocco 3-1. But it wasn't enough. They were eliminated in the group stage, back after 20 years, and gone after 3 matches. Disappointing. The return had been a failure. 4 years later, they tried to qualify for 1990. They failed. They tried for 1994. Failed. They tried for 1998. Failed. Another 12 years without qualifying. Portugal was becoming the ultimate World Cup underachievers. Decent at qualifying for Euros, but World Cups? Disaster. But everything was about to change, because a golden generation was coming, and they'd give Portugal hope again. South Korea and Japan, 2002, and Portugal arrived with what people were calling the golden generation. Luís Figo, Ballon d'Or winner, one of the best players in the world. Rui Costa, brilliant playmaker. Fernando Couto, solid defender. And a young, skinny, incredibly talented winger named Cristiano Ronaldo making the squad at just 17 years old. This was Portugal's best squad ever on paper. They qualified comfortably. Expectations were high. Surely this team could go deep. They were drawn with the United States of America, South Korea, and Poland. Very winnable group. They started perfectly. They beat USA 3-2 in a thriller. Okay, they were up and running. Then they faced Poland. And Poland shocked them 4-0. 4-0. The golden generation was humiliated, stunned. What just happened? Going into the final group game against South Korea, the co-hosts, Portugal needed a result. South Korea needed a win to advance. The match was tight, tense, and ended 1-0 to South Korea. Portugal was eliminated in the group stage with their golden generation. First round exit. Disaster. Luís Figo and Rui Costa's best World Cup was over after 3 matches. The golden generation had flopped spectacularly. Criticism was brutal. How could such a talented team fail so badly? But they'd be back. They had talent. They had Cristiano Ronaldo developing. Surely 2006 would be different. Germany, 2006. And Portugal's golden generation had another shot. Figo and Rui Costa were now in their mid-30s. This was their last chance. And they had a 21-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo who was now starring at Manchester United. A new coach, Luís Felipe Scolari, the man who'd won the 2002 World Cup with Brazil, was in charge. Portugal topped their group comfortably, beating Angola, Iran and Mexico. In the round of 16, they faced the Netherlands in what would become one of the most infamous matches in World Cup history. Portugal 1-0 Netherlands. But the scoreline is irrelevant. What mattered was the cards. The referee, Valentin Ivanov, showed 16 yellow cards and 4 red cards. It was a battle. Players from both sides were kicking, fighting, and getting sent off. It was chaos. But Portugal advanced. In the quarterfinals, they faced England. And this is where Cristiano Ronaldo became hated in England. England's Wayne Rooney was sent off after stamping on Ricardo Carvalho. And Ronaldo was seen on camera apparently encouraging the referee to send Rooney off, his Manchester United teammate. English fans were furious. The match went to penalties. And Portugal's goalkeeper Ricardo became a hero. He saved 3 penalties from Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher. Portugal won the shootout. They were in the semi-finals. Ronaldo had helped eliminate England, but he was now public enemy, number 1 in the Premier League. The semi-final was against France, Zinedine Zidane's last tournament, and France was inspired. Zidane was playing at a legendary level. Portugal fought hard, but France was just too good. Zinedine Zidane scored the only goal of the match from the penalty spot. Portugal lost 1-0. They were out. In the third place playoff, Portugal beat Germany 3-1. Fourth place, Luís Figo retired from international football. Rui Costa retired. The golden generation's World Cup journey was over. Fourth place was respectable, but they'd never reached a final. The quest continued. South Africa, 2010. Cristiano Ronaldo was now in his prime. He'd won his first Ballon d'Or in 2008. He was at Real Madrid, scoring goals for fun. This was his team now. Portugal had a solid squad, but everyone knew this was Ronaldo's World Cup. They struggled in the group stage, drawing with Ivory Coast, beating North Korea 7-0. Ronaldo finally scored his first World Cup goal, and losing to Brazil. They scraped through in second place. In the round of 16, they faced Spain, the eventual champions. Spain was playing the best football on the planet, tiki-taka, at its peak. And Spain was just too good. They beat Portugal 1-0. Ronaldo and Portugal were out in the round of 16. Another disappointment. Ronaldo's World Cup goal drought had ended, but the team had failed again. Brazil 2014. And this tournament was a disaster for Portugal. They were drawn in the group of death with Germany, USA and Ghana. And they fell apart. They lost 4-0 to Germany in their opening match. Ronaldo was clearly not 100% fit. He'd been struggling with injuries before the tournament. Then they drew 2-2 with USA despite leading 1-0. And in their final match, they beat Ghana 2-1, but it wasn't enough. Germany and USA advanced. Portugal was eliminated in the group stage. Again. Ronaldo's World Cup was over after 3 matches. He'd scored 1 goal. Portugal had failed again. The criticism was immense. Why couldn't Portugal deliver at World Cups when they'd just reached the Euro 2004 final and Euro 2012 semi-finals? Why did they always underperform on the world's biggest stage? Now, I know this is a World Cup history video, but we need to talk about Euro 2016 because it's so important to understanding Portugal's story. France, 2016. Portugal won the European Championship for the first time. Cristiano Ronaldo captained them to glory. They didn't play beautiful football. They drew their way through the group stage and knockout rounds, winning just one match in 90 minutes during the entire tournament. But they won. They beat France 1-0 in the final, with Ronaldo injured and crying on the touchline. For the first time in their history, Portugal won a major international trophy. Ronaldo finally had a trophy with Portugal. It wasn't the World Cup, but it was something. The curse was broken, the monkey was off their back. They were champions of Europe, but the World Cup, the big one, still eluded them. Russia 2018. Cristiano Ronaldo was 33 years old. Time was running out. This might be his last realistic chance to win a World Cup. Portugal had a decent squad, but they were aging. They started brilliantly. Against Spain in their opening match, Ronaldo scored a hat-trick, including a stunning 88th minute free kick to earn a 3-3 draw. It was one of the greatest individual World Cup performances. Ronaldo at his best. They beat Morocco, drew with Iran, and topped their group. In the round of 16, they faced Uruguay, Luís Suarez, and Edinson Cavani. And Cavani was unstoppable, scoring twice. Uruguay won 2-1. Portugal was out. Ronaldo's hat-trick heroics had been for nothing. Another early exit, Qatar 2022. And everyone knew this was Cristiano Ronaldo's last World Cup. At 37 years old, at 5 World Cups, 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, 2022, this was his final chance to win the trophy that had eluded him his entire career. But things weren't going well for Ronaldo. He'd just left Manchester United after a controversial interview. He was without a club. His powers were fading. But he was still the captain, still the leader, still the icon. Portugal started well, beating Ghana 3-2. Ronaldo scored from the penalty spot, the first player to score in 5 different World Cups. They beat Uruguay 2-0. They lost to South Korea but had already qualified. In the round of 16, they destroyed Switzerland 6-1. But here's the thing, Ronaldo was benched for that Switzerland match. His replacement, Gonçalo Ramos, scored a hat-trick. Portugal was better without Ronaldo. The writing was on the wall. The Ronaldo era was ending. In the quarterfinals, Portugal faced Morocco, the surprise team of the tournament, and Morocco was incredible defensively. They beat Portugal 1-0. Ronaldo came on as a substitute, but he couldn't change the game. At the final whistle, Ronaldo walked off crying. He was devastated. His World Cup dream was over. He'd never win it. Portugal finished in the quarterfinals. Ronaldo's 5 World Cups had produced 1 semi-final, 2006, 1 round of 16, 2010, 1 group stage exit, 2014, 1 round of 16, 2018, and 1 quarter-final, 2022. No final, no trophy. The greatest Portuguese player ever would retire without the World Cup. So let's talk about Portugal's World Cup legacy, because it's defined by one word: heartbreak. They've produced 3 Ballon d'Or winners: Eusébio, 1965, Luís Figo, 2000, and Cristiano Ronaldo, 2008, 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017. That's incredible for a small nation of 10 million people. They've had a golden generation that included world-class players across the pitch. They've had Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the 2 greatest players of his generation. And yet, they've never reached a World Cup final. Their best finish is 3rd place in 1966, nearly 60 years ago. They've been eliminated in the group stage twice, 2002, 2014. They've been knocked out in the round of 16 3 times. Eusébio played in 1 World Cup and cried when eliminated. Figo played in 2 World Cups and never got past the quarterfinals. Ronaldo played in 5 World Cups and never got past the semi-finals. 3 of the greatest Portuguese players ever, and none of them reached a World Cup final. Portugal is talent. Portugal is genius, but Portugal is also heartbreak. They won Euro 2016. They won the Nations League in 2019. But the World Cup, the big one, remains untouched, unconquered, out of reach. They're the most talented team to never win a World Cup. The ultimate what could have been story. So what's next for Portugal? The 2026 World Cup is coming to North America. And Cristiano Ronaldo will be there for his 6th World Cup. At 41 years old, he'll become one of the oldest outfield players to ever compete at a World Cup. After the heartbreak of Qatar 2022, being benched against Switzerland, the tears after Morocco, many thought Ronaldo's World Cup career was over. But this is Cristiano Ronaldo. He doesn't quit, he doesn't give up, and he's made it clear he's going to 2026. Will he still be Portugal's main man? Probably not. The team has moved on. Gonçalo Ramos, Rafael Leão, and a new generation have proven Portugal can succeed without depending entirely on Ronaldo. But having him in the squad, even as a veteran leader, even as an impact substitute, still brings something special. This will truly be Ronaldo's last dance. His 6th and final World Cup. One last chance to achieve the one trophy that's eluded him his entire legendary career. One final opportunity to lift the World Cup trophy. At 41 years old, with nothing left to prove individually, but everything still to win collectively. Can Portugal finally break through? Can they reach their first ever World Cup final? Can Ronaldo, in his 6th attempt spanning 20 years, finally win the ultimate prize? The story isn't over yet. In fact, the final chapter is still being written. And knowing Ronaldo, it's going to be emotional, dramatic, and unforgettable. One way or another, Portugal's World Cup heartbreak might finally have a happy ending. Or it might be one more tear-filled goodbye. We'll find out in 2026.